Hello. Now we're going to look at word problems that incorporate quadratic equations. So these are going to be stories that we're told that will lead to quadratic equations that we want to solve. Whenever we are doing this, it's important to try and highlight key phrases and tell ourselves the story as clearly as possible. And anytime we can, we want to use a diagram, because diagrams are excellent for translating fairly complicated English into very understandable problems when we sketch everything out and label all the information we're given. The only other piece of information is if you're given a shape, so when you're drawing a diagram, if you're given a shape, you want to write down any formula you know connected to that shape. Now, all of that said, let's get into this question. The sum of two consecutive even natural numbers is squared, and the result is 36. Find the two numbers. There's a lot of jargon going on here. So if we look, what have we got? First or second word in the whole thing is sum. So sum means we are adding stuff together. Consecutive means one after the other. Like if we were dealing with just whole numbers, it would be 8 and then 9 would be the next consecutive whole number. So it means the next number. Even means that they're divisible by 2. So we'd be talking about stuff like 2, 4, 6, and so on. Natural numbers means that we're dealing with numbers going from the positive whole numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. And we have two, effectively, because they're natural numbers, we know they're positive whole numbers, so we have two even positive numbers, consecutive even positive numbers, are added together and then squared, and they are equal to 36. So we always need to start giving things names so that we can talk about them more effectively. So I have two consecutive even numbers, so I'm just going to call the first number x. Well, what would be the next consecutive even number? If I started a particular even number, how would I get to the next even number, the next even natural number? Well, I'd have to add 2, wouldn't I? If I was at 2, I'd have to add 2 to get 4. If I was at 4, I'd have to add 2 to get to 6. If I was at 6, I'd have to add 2 to get to 8. So the next consecutive even number is going to be x plus 2. So I now have a way of describing the two numbers that I'm talking about. So those two numbers are added together. We sum them up. We add them together. So we have x plus 2. We have those two numbers added together. And then when we've added them together, we square them. So whatever the result of that is, we square it. And we have that equal to 36. So now we've done most of the hard work of this question, because now this is just a quadratic we can simplify and solve. But what have we got? We recognized that we were adding things together. We talked ourselves through how we would figure out consecutive even numbers. And then we were able to say, well, we added them together first. So we added the first number and then the second number together. We added them together and then we squared them. That's the story we were given, and we were told that that was equal to 36. Now let's just solve the algebra. So we have like terms here. We have an x, we have an x. So we add them together and we get 2x plus 2, all to be squared, is equal to 36. We know anything squared means multiply the thing by itself. So we have 2x plus 2 times 2x plus 2. If we had 4 squared, it would mean multiply 4 by 4. If we have 2x plus 2 squared, it means multiply 2x plus 2 by 2x plus 2. And that's still equal to 36. So now we can multiply out our brackets. And we get 2x on 2x plus 2 plus 2 on 2x plus 2 is all equal to 36. And now we multiply what is outside by the bracket by each thing inside. So we get 4x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 36. I have some like terms here, so I can add them up. 4x squared plus 8x plus 4 is equal to 36. Now I recognize I've got a quadratic, so I want to try and factorize it. So that means I need to have everything over on the left-hand side equal to 0. So 8x minus 32 is equal to 0. Now I see I have a common factor. So common factor always comes first. And in this case, it's a number common factor of 4. So I have a number common factor of 4. So if it's a number common factor, I can just divide it out. If I had x as a common factor, I would factorize. I'd take x out as a common factor. But if it's just a number, there's no advantage in doing that. So I'm going to just divide both sides by 4. And then the quadratic I'm dealing with is x squared plus 2x minus 8 is equal to 0. And now I just want to try and factorize my terms. So I have a secret 1 in front of my x squared. So I have 1 by minus 8 is equal to minus 8. So what are all the numbers that multiply together or to give minus 8? Will be 1 and minus 8, or 2 by minus 4. Now, 2 and minus 4 would add together or to minus 2, so I could instead write minus 2 by plus 4, and that would add together to give the number in front of x, which is what I'm aiming for. So I have two numbers now that multiply together to give me minus 8 and add together to give me the coefficient of x, the plus 2. So that's what I want to break up my plus 2x into. I want to break it up into minus 2x plus 4x minus 8 is equal to 0. That's 8. And then I'm taking the factor that is common to the first two and common to the second two. So I have x on, x minus 2 plus 4 on x minus 2. So I have x minus 2 is a common factor. And then I write down the stuff that is not common, equal to 0. Now, this multiplied by this is 0. That means that either of these could be 0. So x minus 2 could be equal to 0, or x plus 4 could be equal to 0. Rearranging. Minus 4, minus 4. X could be equal to 2, or x could be equal to minus 4. Now, I go back to my original question. I said this is a natural number, so I know that it can't be minus 4, so I can ignore that answer. That can't be true because minus 4 is not a natural number, so the only valid solution is going to come from x is equal to 2. So if x was my first number, then the next number would be 2 plus 2. So my two numbers are 2 and 4. So that is my final answer. Next question. The perimeter of a rectangle is 22 meters. Its area is 28 meters squared. Find its length and width. Very first thing I'm going to do is, I'm told I have a rectangle. I'm going to draw a rectangle. So I have my rectangle now, and I'm going to label my width and my length. Those are the things I'm asked for. And what am I told? I'm told the area, which would be equal to length multiplied by width, is equal to 28. And I am told that the perimeter is 22. And the perimeter would be length plus width plus length plus width would be equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width is equal to 22. So what have I done? I've drawn myself a picture. I've written down all of the formula that I know that are related to this shape and the information I'm given, and I've written in my information, and that should be meters squared and that should be meters. So now, can I use what I've been given to find out my missing length and width? And I can. There's two different ways to do this. The way that I think is easiest to deal with is to take the perimeter. So I know that 2 times the length plus 2 times the width is equal to 22. I want to find out what the length and the width are. So I can see I have a common factor of 2 here. So I can divide both sides by 2. So I know that length plus width is equal to 11. And if I want to try and talk about these things, I want to have one letter at a time. So could I isolate this and I could say that my length would be equal to 11 minus my width. So subtract, just get the length by itself. I'd have 11 minus my width. So I can now talk about my length directly in terms of my width. And now that I've done that, I see that if I sub in L is 11 minus W into my area formula, then I'd have an equation that only involved W's. So I'd have one equation with one unknown, and I know how to solve that. So the area is equal to length by width is equal to 11 minus W times W. This is our way of describing the width times the width is going to be 28, as we're told in the question. So now I see I'm going to end up with a quadratic. I'm going to end up with 11W minus W squared is equal to 28. Now this is a quadratic, but it's not in the right order. So let's rearrange it so that we have it in the right order. And when we rearrange everything, we get W squared minus 11W plus 28 is equal to 0. Or 0 is equal to this. It wouldn't matter which way around we wrote that. And now we want to try and factorize our quadratic. So I'm going to write down the steps in that. Now, we've gotten our quadratic simplified down, and we know that the width could be equal to 4 or the width could be equal to 7. But why have we got two different answers? Well, let's try and find the lengths for each. So we know that the length should be equal to 11 minus the width. So the length would be equal to 11 minus 4 is equal to 7, which is interesting. And then we have length would be equal to 11 minus 7, which is equal to 4. So what's happening here is that the maths doesn't actually care. This is length or width are interchangeable. We tend to use length for the longer side. So I would naturally say that the length of our rectangle would be 7 and the width would be 4. But the algebra doesn't actually care because mathematically there isn't a difference between them. So we are finding that we're getting the same answers twice effectively because of the way the maths works out. So steps again. If we're told we have a shape, draw that shape. Label in what you know for the relevant parts of it. So you know length and width are relevant for area, for rectangles I should say, and you know the area and the perimeter of a rectangle. In this case, we talked about area and perimeter, so we definitely write them down, but write down any formula connected to that shape that you know, and then the information you have been given will allow you to make progress. And that is what we need for translating from our word problems into our quadratic equations.